Today we're going to take the second step in learning how to do proofs. We're not just going to mark the three important aspects on the picture, but we're actually going to write them down. So here we go. So in the first one, first we need to figure out what method we're going to use, and then we'll list those three things and write a congruent statement. So I know that the left is congruent to the right, the top is congruent to the bottom, so that gives me two facts, but we're always looking for three. So the third one is the side in the middle. Since I have three sides, this one's pretty easy to see. I'm going to use side, side, side to prove they're congruent. Now, instead of saying the left is congruent to the right, and the top to the bottom, and the middle to itself, we're actually going to write down those congruent statements. And it doesn't matter the order that we're putting them in. I'm going to label them so you can refer back to it, but they don't have to be labeled and they don't have to be in a particular order. So the ones I labeled side 1 would be the left and the right. And to name a segment, use two letters with the bar over it. So the left would be MN, is congruent to the right, which would be OP. For segment 2, the top NO would be congruent to the bottom, NP. And the third side, well, that segment's congruent to itself. And when we do that, we're using the reflexive property. But when you write it, you could do MO or OM, it's the same thing. But when you write the second one, it's got to match what you start with. Since I wrote MO, I got to finish with MO. It's got to be identical. Now we're going to write a congruent statement for the two triangles. So it doesn't matter how you start the first one. I'm going to say MNO. And when I did MNO, I started at M and O. So I went this way through side 1, side 2, and then side 3. So to repeat that pattern and go the same direction over here, I've got to go through side 1, side 2, and then side 3. So that would be O to P to M. All right. Next one, let's try it again. So in this picture, let's label what I have. I have a pair of angles here. I have another pair of angles on the bottom because they're both right angles, and a side in the middle. Because the side is in between angle 1 and angle 2, this method is angle, side, angle. And now I'm going to label them. Again, the three things listed do not need to be in a particular order. I'm labeling so you know which one belongs to which. Okay, so for the top angles, if I'm going to name them, if I just say angle H, you don't know which angle I'm talking about. That could be the left, the right, or both. And when you name an angle, you either use one letter, which doesn't work in this case, or three letters. So I'm going to name the left angle GHJ. So angle GHJ is congruent to angle. The one on the right is IHJ. Okay, the side in the middle. Well, with the reflexive property, it's congruent to itself, so I'm going to match it. HJ is congruent to HJ. And last but not least, the second angle. Again, if I said J, you wouldn't know if it's a left or right or both of them, so I need to use three letters. So for the first one, I'm going to say angle GJH. And the second one, I'm going to say angle IJH. Now let's write a congruent statement. It doesn't matter how I write the first one, but the second one has to match. So I'm going to call this triangle GHJ. Now on your homework tonight, this first part here is going to be filled in. You just have to do the blank, so that way everyone's doing the same one. Alright, so GHJ, that's blank angle 1, angle 2. So blank angle 1, angle 2 would be IHJ. And that would be the end of it. Alright, let's try another example. Example 3. In this one, I've got a side marked. I've got an angle. This is just angle 1. And I have the side in the middle. That's my third fact. Now as I'm looking at it, the only one that works for two sides and an angle is side, angle, angle. Excuse me, I said that wrong. Side, angle, side. And if I'm looking at this picture, is that angle 1 in between side 1 and side 2? And the answer is it's not. And so when I re-look at this picture, it actually spells a bad word. And since we can't use a bad word unless it's in a right triangle. And when it's in a right triangle, this is the hypotenuse, and these are legs. So we can do this using hypotenuse leg. So the hypotenuse is the one in the center. So BD is congruent to BD. And the legs to the left and the right. So AB is congruent to CD. But when we do these proofs, and this is going to be really important next class, we always need to list 3 things. And right now we only have 2. Well, the third thing that we're going to list is for hypotenuse leg is that we have right angles. We're not saying they're congruent. We are saying that they are right. So look how I write this down this time. Now, if I look at angle A, you know exactly which angle I'm talking about when I say angle A. I don't need to use 3 letters. So lucky us, we can use 1 letter this time. So we're going to write angle A and angle C are right angles. And if we have right angles, then we have right triangles, and that will allow for hypotenuse leg to work. So there are my 3 facts. Congruent statement. I'm going to start with triangle ABD is congruent to. Okay, so I started at A, went through the one side, and then down the hypotenuse. So I start the right angle, go through the one side, and then through the hypotenuse. That's going to be triangle CBD. Let's look at one more of these. As I'm looking at this picture, this dash means that I have a congruent side, so that's one fact. I've got the vertical angles. Those are kind of easy to name. That's the second fact. So now I need the third fact. Well, the third fact comes from the fact that I have parallel lines. So here's a parallel line, and here's a parallel line. What's interesting here is that you have 2 transversals. And the reality is you can use either one. It doesn't matter. You just have to commit to one for the problem. So I'm going to use this transversal. And based on that transversal, the alternate interior angles that are congruent are these angles. Because when I draw them in, they have to go from parallel line to transversal. Alright, so now I have 2 angles and a side. So now I need to ask myself, is that side in between angle 1 and angle 2? And the answer is that it's not. So this method is angle, angle, side. So now let's write them down. Angle 1 was the vertical angles in the middle. If I just say angle Y, that's not going to be clear enough, so I'm going to need to use 3 letters. So the one on the left, I'm going to call angle XYW. And the one on the right, I'm going to call ZYV. That's angle 1. Angle 2 is the top left and the bottom right. Well, if I say angle X, you know exactly which angle I'm talking about, so you can just say angle X is congruent to angle V. Now for angle 2, if you want to use 3 letters, you can, but you don't have to. And if you don't have to, it certainly makes it easier to use 1. Alright, and last but not least, we need the side, the left and the right. So that would be XW is congruent to ZV. Now for our congruent statement. I'm going to do WXY is congruent to, well, W is blank, so W's got to match with Z. X had the double mark, so that's going to mark with B. And then lastly, Y. Okay, these problems are different. I have not marked all the information on the picture that you need. So you're going to have to figure out what is missing and then also write a congruent statement, because we can never get enough practice with that. So this one wants angle, angle, side. So let's see what we do know. Well, we have an angle here, so that would take care of this angle. We have a second angle here, so that would take care of this angle. So what we're missing is the side. Now we got to figure out which side it is. Well, if it was angle, side angle, it would have to be the side in between. Well, that would be these two, because it's in between. That's not what we want. We need the non-included side. So we actually get to choose this time. We could do the left or the right, or the top and the bottom. It doesn't make any difference, so I'm just going to do the top and the bottom, because why not? Oops. So if I'm going to label that, what's missing is the NO needs to be marked congruent to TA. Now I'm going to write a congruent statement. I'm going to say triangle MNO is congruent to triangle. Well, M is the 1 mark, so it's got to match with K. N is the blank, so it's got to match with A. And O is the 1, so it's got to, O is the 2, so it's got to mark with 2. There we go. Next one. Side, angle, side. Okay, let's see what I know. Well, I've got a side in the middle. I can take care of that. Yeah, nothing else really marked on the picture because these arrows mean parallel. But if it's parallel, then that means I've got an angle. So let's look. These are my parallel lines. This is my transversal. And when I draw on that congruent angle, they got to go from parallel line to transversal. So that is where my angle comes from, the alternate interior angles. So what's missing is the side. Now, this one is specific. It's side angle side, so that angle has to be in between side 1 and side 2. Well, the only way to make it in between side 1 and side 2 is to make this side 2. So now, what's missing is the left being congruent to the right. So we have SR congruent to, I don't know if that's supposed to be U or a B. I'm going with U, but whatever you want. Alright, so now we write a congruent statement. Triangle RSU is congruent to triangle. Well, R is the opposite of T, and then S had the mark in it, so that's U. And then we put back up to S. One more and then we're done. Alright, angle, side angle. Well, we've got an angle here, so that's one fact. We have the side in the middle, so that's another fact. But what we're missing is the angle. Well, we can either do the A and C, or we can do the one in the middle at D. And the way to make that side go in the middle would be to do D. Now, if I just write angle D is congruent to D, that's not going to work because it's not specific enough. So I need to use 3 letters. So I'm going to call this left one angle ADB. Is congruent to the right one, which is CDB. As a congruent statement, I'm going to write triangle ADD is congruent to triangle. Well, A matches up with C, B has the one arc in it, and D has the 2. Alright, again, your homework will look just like this, except in the congruent statement part, this first part will be filled in, and the second part will be blank.